Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very full test dojo as we continue looking at the epic destinies coming out for Dungeons and Dragons Online with Update 51. Now, with all these revamps, you've seen quite a few of them. There's a couple here that are still left in the Primal Sphere, so I want to finish out talking about some of these ones and how they compared both to their previous counterparts and also how they're going to perform now. So, Primal Avatar is one of the new revamped Epic Destinies, but you could basically consider this a new Epic Destiny since Primal Avatar did not do a whole lot. It had a couple abilities that were very good. It had the Tsunami that was broken and always knocked stuff down. You had the Balance Attacks, which knocked down monsters and made them helpless and give you more hit chance. And you had extra damage out of the tree while dual wielding or in animal form. Rejuvenation Cocoon as well, but that's also staying. And that's pretty much it. This tree actually does a whole lot of things. It does so many things, actually. It's kind of one of the best trees in the entire game. So, to get started, you get to choose one different style. You either get to be of the heart, which is your positive light and fire spell power. You can either choose the sky, which is electric, cold, and sonic, or you can choose Thorn, which is acid, force, and poison, meaning it works with a lot of different spell powers, 9 different spell powers to be exact. Additionally, you can choose a minor affinity as well, which means you can get all the abilities. The abilities in this tree are themed around the particular choices you make down here, of which of the two you choose, and then you can choose the spells based off of that. So it kind of fits together. It's very cohesive. As far as the actual abilities go, it's just a little bit of extra stats. The big one here with this court at 26, giving you Weather the Elements, it makes it so you gain 15% absorption against elemental damage, which is really strong. And on top of that, when you cast Protection from Energy, it gives you 25 points per level instead of 12 with no level cap. This is huge. It's a lot stronger than it used to be, so you're getting a lot of extra defense, more than double, actually probably even close to triple. So look forward to seeing Weathering the Elements. This is going to be a very cool ability. Again, it's not super overpowered, but it just means that energy resist mass, or sorry, the protection from energy's mass is going to be a very good spell to be casting all the time. Now, down here at the bottom cores, you got some basic stuff, reflex saving throws and tumble and balance, and some spell power for using a quarterstaff. Physical and magical resistance rating, pretty standard. Rejuvenation Cocoon, big return here. A lot of people might like Cocoon, but just wait. If you think Rejuvenation Cocoon was good, you should see some of the other healing spells you get here. Nature's Friend, which lets you get to pick a spell power type, all the spell power types represented here, as well as some extra little stats. And these are little buddies that appear next to you when you shrine. They're actually visually represented, so your party members will know that if they stand next to you, they get a buff. So all that you have to do is have everyone shrine together, and then everyone gets this cool buff from these animals. It's not really powerful, but it's pretty neat. And then next we have the epic strikes. So as I mentioned before, every tree has an epic strike, shares a cooldown with every other epic strike, so you can't use the ones from multiple trees. However, these epic strikes are really good. First, you have Carrion Swarm, and Carrion Swarm is an area of effect damage over time, where you pick a guy, you do a damage over time effect, and it hits all the targets around. Now, damage over time effects are usually bad, and I don't recommend you take them in DDO. You should take this ability. This ability is extremely powerful. It does a very high amount of damage. Most importantly, it's area of effect. So what that means is that if you drop this on a crowd of enemies and the melee starts going in, one of the problems with damage over time effects is if you pick a monster and then that monster doesn't stay alive, it just dies right away, your damage over time effect didn't really do a whole lot. With this area of effect, you can put it on an entire pack of monsters. So then if one archer runs off into a corner and starts doing its own thing, it's still dying to this effect. It makes it a lot more versatile, and I highly recommend you check out Carrion Swarm. Then you have Spring to Summer, where effectively you press this button and you explode, giving you and all nearby allies Rejuvenation Cocoon. It's a lot of healing. And then, afterwards, you explode, dealing fire damage. And it's a lot of damage. So, a heal and an explosion, it's very cool, very thematic. It's centered on you, so you have to get in the fray, but it's really powerful in testing. And then finally, Stormcatcher. Now, Stormcatcher is probably the weakest of the three. It's a single target attack that deals a lightning strike as well as a cold damage over time afterwards. It's not necessarily a bad spell because it has a big slow on it, and also it reduces the reflex saves of monsters by half your character level. So if you're anybody who uses reflex saves, you're worried, what about my DCs, Strimtom? What's going to happen to my DCs? How can I hit the monsters? Well, don't worry. Not only are your DCs going to be fine with this update, but even better, this ability alone reduces a monster's saving throws by 15 when you're at the level cap. With no save. It just does that. So that's really, really sick, and it's very valuable. When we move up to the tier 2, you're going to be picking up the Mantle here. The Mantle is just, depending on which element you chose, it gives you extra damage when you cast those spells. So if you chose Sky, Cold, Electric, and Sonic spells have a chance to deal more damage. Thorn Acid, Poison, and Force spells have a chance to deal more damage. The only difference is Heart, where when you cast a healing spell, it has a chance to apply Rejuvenation Cocoon to them. This is actually very common, so it's very interesting how often this Rejuvenation Cocoon affects, and also this proc chance, so very good effect. Flowers in the Thorns. This is a very unique spell where when you step inside Thorn Spikes or Entangle, you automatically heal. I don't know if this is good because no one casts these spells at all. So the answer is this could be very good if you start casting these spells. I don't know if anybody will, but honestly, normally I would say, oh, well, this is some kind of weird filler point, but no. There's so many good abilities you're already taking at this tier. You're going up here no matter what. You have to want this. I think it's very interesting. It could have value. I'm just not sure how much it would have, because you'd have to spec into this, but could be cool. Spirit Boon Body, which gives you either body or mind. It's just +2 to either Strength, Dex, and Con, or +2 to Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma, which is kind of nice. And then the Primal Spell. Now, it's important to note, these spells are not epic strikes, which means they don't share a cooldown, which means if you're running Draconic Incarnation, if you're running Magus of the Eclipse, if you're running Fatesinger, any other Spellcaster Destiny, these are extra spells. And this is something that when we talk about Draconic in the future, which we'll talk about later down the road. Actually, I should probably just talk about it next. So I'm going to do that instead. So I said Primal, but it's not actually Primal. It's just going to be casters. Draconic Incarnation, that's right here. This is actually, you can take the breath and you can take this. And some of these Primal spells are insane. So let's take a look at those right now. Reborn in the Fire. Deal a bunch of fire damage and also heal allies nearby you. It's very similar to the one below, except instead of a heal over time, it's just a direct heal. And this thing is really strong. It's so strong, I was easily soloing R7s on my Warlock because of how strong the healing is. Yes, very, very good ability. Next, you have Shardstorm, which basically summons a cloud of daggers around you. And I'm actually going to show you what this one looks like so you can kind of get a good perspective about this. It's hard to imagine what this is supposed to look like. I'm just going to throw this in here. Grab this, it's fine, and then grab Shardstorm. So Shardstorm is really hard to even understand what this looks like, because just trying to explain it is confusing. But Shardstorm, basically, you take this effect, and I conjure these shards around me, these little leaves, and then they seek out a nearby target and start dealing damage to them. The damage is obviously lackluster here, because I don't have any of the appropriate spell powers, but in my opinion, the damage is surprisingly good when you have the appropriate spell powers, and it gets even better. You get this Thrive effect, which makes it so when you cast your Epic Strike, you have a 30% chance to reduce your spell cost by 25% for 10 seconds, meaning as long as you're constantly casting this ability right here, like Spring to Summer, you're constantly getting the reduced spell costs, and your character is always able to have all of their spells available. You're casting Meteor Swarm, you're casting, Word of Balance, you're casting, I don't know, Fatesinger, Bard Sonic spells. It doesn't matter, it's very powerful. And then finally, the upgrade to each ability. All of these spells that you get, so Shardstorm as well as the other two. So I actually didn't even go through the last one, which is really, really good. So I have to do that now. But the upgrade here doubles the damage and adds an additional effect, which is crazy. Because that Shardstorm, damage wasn't super impressive. But hitting for 1,000 with basically no spell power is okay, because it hits multiple times. But it carries on Rider effect. It's very, very good. Anyway, the last one is Thundersnow here, which is a area effect. It just does some cold and some lightning. Honestly, not too impressive. The damage is good, but cold and lightning, I've seen better. Let's look at the upgraded effects for those spells. So, Sky, Thundersnow does double damage, so now the damage is very good. And it applies the slow and the reflex save reduction in an AoE. So now you have this AoE cone, and when you press the button, it hits every monster with that AoE and that slow. This is absurd. It's really gross in epic content because you basically just freeze up entire rooms. Not only can this propagate freeze effects as well, because it has 2 different damage types. Very strong, very, very good effect. The Heart effect makes it so it doubles the damage of Reborn in Fire. This also doubles the healing, which is very interesting. And you get uncapped dodge for 4 seconds, 25%. Some people might think that that's not very good. 25% dodge is a lot. And you cast the spell constantly, so very, very good effect. And then lastly, the Thorn, which makes it so Shardstorm does double damage, as I said, and it makes it so you get 25% of your life as a temp HP shield. Why does it do that? I have no idea, but it's really, really good. All of them are amazing, and they fit so many different builds and playstyles. Just awesome spell-like abilities. I cannot wait to play with Primal Avatar. It's so fun. Others in Tier 3, we have the Improved Form. Do you have an Elemental Form? You get some stats. Basically it. There's also a Wild Shape thing in here. I don't see anyone going this far for the Wild Shape effect, but you might. Shared Mantle. This makes it so your summons now benefit from your Primal Avatar Destiny Mantle. We'll talk about why that is a little bit later. The Magic of the Old World, so you get DCs, either Evocation Conjuration or Transmutation. And then lastly, Natural Shielding, which makes it so that you get a little bit more health and your summons get 60% bonus life. There's a lot of summon life. You might not think summons are important, but we're going to get to that. Tier 4 is very straightforward. You can get Evasion, which is cool. Intensity, so just universal spell power, which is always good. Nature's Blessing, this is when you shrine, you and all allies get 5% max hit points. So if you just hit the first shrine, everyone gets 5% more hit points. Going to be amazing, and for especially raids, where you have a shrine at the beginning, like Vision of Destruction, everyone's going to want to get this effect very, very strong. And then you have Improved Meta Magic to reduce the cost of your Meta Magics. Because there's 2 of them here, you can actually make it so your Maximize, your Quicken, these things are free. And free Maximize is a lot of spell power to keep on every spell, so keep that in mind. That's very cool. I know a lot of people kind of get stuck in the idea of like you're only using spell-like abilities, you're not actually casting any spells, but trust me, you will be. When your Meta Magics are free, you're going to be leaning back on that Delayed Blast Fireball. You're going to be leaning back on that other good spells, Acid Well, or Meteor Swarm, or whatever else it is. So keep that in mind. And now we move to Tier 5, the cream of the crop. +3 to all DCs. It's in every caster tree. It's also over here. So cool. We've got Improved Intensified, to reduce the cost of your Intensify by 6 points. That's a lot, especially if you did take Intensify for epics. Greater Form. Greater Form, Heart of the Flame. Become like Summer for 20 seconds. All these have a 5-minute cooldown. All these Greater Forms. These 2 aren't listed, so I can't tell you exactly what they do. But the Greater Form here, Heart of Flame, for 20 seconds you get movement speed. You become ethereal, so you can move through monsters. Uncapped dodge bonus. 100 immunity to fire and light damage. You deal damage to nearby enemies, and you heal nearby allies. This ability is insane. It's probably the most powerful of all of the epic moments here. The damage is unbelievable. Immunity to elements is crazy, and the defense is amazing. Obviously, you can't do this all the time, but it's extremely good. These other 2 effects, Sky Rager and Thorn Cloud, which don't have their durations or their abilities listed here, do the same thing, except they give you immunity to the other abilities, and they also grant you some extra damage based on their different stats. Really, really, really powerful. In fact, I'm just going to show this off while I can, because I'm here. Might as well just show you what this looks like. It looks pretty cool. Oh my gosh, I got to pick stuff. Hate leveling up these trees. Hope your day is going well. Hope everything's feeling good with people out there watching, because I should have planned this ahead of time. That's not what I wanted. Here's the heart. So this ability, as I mentioned before, is bonkers, and I'll show you why. So again, I don't have any... I have some of the relevant stats, because I have some fire stats, but here, so now all of a sudden I'm going to turn this on and enter my elemental form, and now, in my elemental form, I can move through stuff, and I am healing for 2,200 on all nearby allies. So if I walk over here next to Yeet, I'm now healing Yeet. I just have to stand here, I don't have to do anything. I can move through monsters, and it's free damage. And you can maximize and power it to increase the stats of it. So you can apply all your meta magics if you're somebody who has all the meta magics. It's very, very, very strong. Yeah. Mass Frog, scaling off of all the base stats. Mass Frog was very good, but only really worked well with Wisdom or against constructs. Now everybody can make it work well all the time. Very cool. And then finally, the Primal Ally. So this tree, I don't know if this is going to get cut, because it doesn't entirely work, but if they can make it work, it'll be really good. You summon an ally that when you drop it down, it deals damage to nearby monsters, which is pretty strong. And it's kind of like a little turret. The idea is, I think one of the problems they ran into with designing summons is that summons are problematic because when you have them, they don't run around very well. They don't do a whole lot of stuff. They have difficulty following you. However, this summon's hitting for like 2k, which is not too bad, you know, dealing 1,000 damage with the Sunburst, and it basically just becomes a little turret. You drop the turret down, it starts doing stuff. There's a couple problems. It scales with your spell power, which is kind of cool. However, right now this mantle effect, where it uses your mantle, is not entirely working to get extra damage, which would be cool if it did. And on top of that, it also has the problem where it doesn't use your critical damage, which is the majority of where you're getting spell damage from. So until this can either factor in critical, or it scales off a percentage of your base spell power, so maybe it's 150 or 200% spell power scaling, it's a problem. Additionally, they need to tweak the AI. All of them still attack. They'll literally just use melees, and that's a bit of a problem if a monster is too close. But if they can get rid of the melees, if they can give it better scaling, this ability is going to feel very strong. Drop it down, it just does some stuff, and then you keep moving on. Overall, my impression is Primal Avatar is extremely good, and you will have a great time with this tree. It's so much more powerful than it was before, and it pairs well with pretty much any spellcaster because of the wide variety of spell types you can get. So strong. So now let's talk about another spellcaster, Draconic Incarnation. The other spellcaster destiny we have to preview on the server. Right now, some people have noticed there's a couple things missing. You probably don't see Energy Burst because it's not here. Energy Burst is no longer in the tree. One of the things that was done is to combine Energy Burst and Dragon Breath into just Dragon Breath, which might seem like it's not that great, but you get to cast this all the time, and there's no refuting the fact. You are losing Energy Burst. You don't have Energy Burst anymore. You only have one of these spells. So there is a slight reduction in damage. But as I said, have you guys seen this ability right here? What if I want to take Reborn in the Fire, or Shardstorm, or Thundersnow? These abilities more than make up for it. All of these are better than Energy Burst, and you get them along with what you're doing at a Draconic Incarnation, and you get more stats. So don't be afraid of the idea that, oh, this tree looks like it's missing something. It might be, because you're supposed to make it up with entire second trees. Because, like, sure, maybe my character doesn't have Energy Burst anymore. Instead, I just have Energy Burst that also heals me back to full, even in like R8 and R9. It's pretty good. So let's take a look at what's in this tree. First, you get to pick a bloodline. Black, blue, red, or white. Additionally, you can also pick the green bloodline for poison spells and the shadow bloodline for negative spells. That's right, shadow dragons are now a thing, and negative spellcasters rejoice. You have something to do in epics, unlike the entire time before this, where there's literally nothing that supports negative spellcasting in current epic destinies. Moving up the cores, you get issue materials, so no more spell components for you, get them out of your inventory, and elemental blood, where you have a chance to get temporary hit points whenever you cast a spell. Very, very cool. You also get a stacking bonus to spell points, spell point cost reduction, which I confirmed it is stacking. It doesn't do that on this preview, but it's supposed to be. So this will be an extra 10% off of the cost of your spells, which is amazing. Tier 1, we have Draconic Perception, +6 reflex saving throws. It's not that bad, but you're probably not going to put your points here. You have Dragon Hide for no longer failing fortitude saves on a 1, which is as good as it was before. You have Arcane Studies for a bunch of additional spell power. It doesn't look like it's a lot because it's +5 spell power for your heritage and +5 universal at 3 ranks, but you also get +6 spellcraft, so it's effectively like for your main spell power, 16 spell power for 3 points, which is good enough to take, so think about that. And then Dragon Skills for PRR and MRR. The actual Destiny Mantle is called Attune the Arcane, and this makes it so spells of your Draconic Heritage element actually deal extra damage, or they have a chance to deal extra damage. This bonus damage is very high, and it scales off of your spell power. It's pretty good. The cooldown is 10 seconds. I wish it was a little bit shorter, maybe like an 8-second cooldown or a 7-second cooldown. 10 is kind of steep. You don't get to see it proc all that often, but the damage is good when it does come off. Moving up to the tier 2, we have Draconic Presence for breath weapon DCs. This is for all your breath weapons, your Alchemist breath weapons, your Dragonborn breath weapons, all your breath weapons. Draconic Rage, you may not cast spells while raging. This is amazing. There's not a lot of good times where you want this. I think it's very cool that this is in this tree. It makes me wonder if this shouldn't have been included into one of these other things to free up a space, like maybe Draconic Rage could have fit in with Draconic Presence, so it could be the same thing. I'm not so sure. But either way, I think it's a good inclusion, and it's something that should exist in the game, considering how much cool multiclassing you can do once this option is opened up. Speed of Magics gives you access to mobile spellcasting. It's important to note that mobile spellcasting is still bad, and you still don't want this. Conduit gives you double the implement bonus of quarterstaffs, which you don't generally use quarterstaffs, but in the edge cases where you might be using it, I actually came up with a build that used quarterstaffs. It was helpful for this type of character. I was able to get over 1100 spell power just standing in town, not with any buffs or anything, with all the buffs active and the meta magics closer to 1800, I think, spell power, all said and done. So this can come in handy if using a quarterstaff. And then you have your Dragon Breath. As I said, the Dragon Breath, it's an epic strike, so it shares a cooldown, but it does hella damage, and you can use it all the time with fully maxed out. This has a 15-second cooldown when you've got it all said and done. Moving up to the tier 3, Spell Pen, pretty nice. Daunting War, which makes it so all your breath weapons have a 25% chance to paralyze with no save. This is actually really strong. It happens all the time. This works on your Dragonborn Dragon Breath. This works on your Alchemist Dragon Breath. Really powerful ability. It makes me wish we also had a Dragon Breath effect out of like the arcane trees that they could cast to go along with this, but Daunting Roar, insanely good. Just, this is so crazy how powerful this is. You might think that like 25% chance isn't happening all the time, but you're Dragon Breathing like 4 or 5 people most of the time. It's gonna work. You're gonna see this happen often. Next, we have Scales of the Dragon. Now, a lot of people used to use the ability Energy Sheath, because Energy Sheath, this area is noisy, I'm going to move away from here. Energy Sheath is an ability that reduces the amount of damage you would take from an element by 50%, which is pretty cool. However, this one is different. It gives you a HP shield, so it absorbs damage that you take, and it gives you the elemental damage resistance. However, you cannot pick this one, it just does it based on your dragon type. This is a adjustment for some people. I personally, in my opinion, I don't really mind this too much. I think that the opportunity cost of having to take the, going just tier 1 in Draconic, or like getting the twist to be able to have 50% absorption to or to whatever element you wanted was too low. It was very easy to fit into pretty much any build. You didn't require any gear swaps to get more absorption gear. It was just not too much of an investment for what it gave. In my opinion, I think it would be okay if this was still a multi-selector and you could choose the one you wanted, since it's this high up in the tree anyway, in my opinion. Then we have Arcane Spell Sword, where you get to choose to enhance either your Arcane Archer, your Eldritch Knight, or your Vile Chemist toggles with more dice. Oh my god, a buff to Arcane Archer, Vile Chemist, and Eldritch Knight? Say no more. Very exciting. I love that this is placed here. I'm excited for this one. And then, of course, Draconic Spell Focus, Conjuration DCs, Evocation DCs, Necromancy, or Transmutation. Moving up to the tier 4s, you've got Pull from the Wellspring, which makes it so Wellspring power's duration is doubled, and you get 10 temporary spell points, or a total of 300 whenever you cast the ability. This is ridiculous. Wellspring of Power is so good. It gives you 150 spell power, as well as 20% spell critical damage. This now lasts for a whole minute. This is a crazy buff. This may even be overpowered, but honestly, it's so sick, so I hope it stays in. So, awesome work with this one. It's great. Coalescence, so you bypass damage reduction of your spells. This effect is more powerful than you think, because it actually, the way that the math works in DDO is resistances, damage reductions, come before all your spell power calculations. So you might say, okay, well, I hit a guy for like 20,000 with Energy Burst. I don't need to take off 10 Strimtom. That's stupid. That is stupid. But the base damage is where it actually gets taken off of. So imagine a scenario where you cast like Delayed Blast Fireball, which hits for somewhere around like 300 base damage, and then you apply your spell powers and everything else. So your Delayed Blast Fireball is actually closer to like 7,000 on a crit. Well, it starts off with like 300 base damage. Well, that 300, if you hit resistance, is what gets reduced by 10. So now that 300, or like 15, I think it's supposed to be 15 on the third bypass, but it gets reduced by 15. So that 300 is now actually 285, and when you multiply that out, you're actually missing a surprisingly large amount of damage. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially multi-hit spells are really affected by this. If you're somebody who uses like Frostlance, as an example, as a multi-hit spell, Scorching Ray as a multi-hit spell. So this has a big effect, but I don't think this effect works, so I didn't test it. I should have. Either way, if it is in the game, this is a very good enhancement, so I would like it to stay. It's very, very good. Then you have Elemental Inevitability. This is a new spell that goes in here. It's an extra spell-like ability, and it is a damage over time effect. It's a strong damage over time effect that stacks. This effect is very good. It's designed to give you something to do when you're in a raid and you have nothing to do because you're out of mana. This allows you to just do something all the time. On top of that, it actually does a ton of damage since this stacks 5 times. So, oh, did I say you get Dragon Breath and this and this? Yeah, you're going to have a lot of fun with offensive elemental spellcasters. Energy Vortex. So it upgrades your mantle, so every time you use a breath, any type of breath, it increases the damage, or it gives you a damage aura that does damage to nearby monsters. This means that if you happen to use Dragon Breath, if you happen to use Alchemist Breath, if you happen to use Dragonborn Breath, you then get more Energy Vortex, so it synergizes with all the breath abilities. Again, making me think we should have more breath abilities and spells in Heroics. And then finally, improve metamagics to make your metamagics free. And now it's time for the Tier 5. Plus speed all spell DCs, great. Spread your wings, where you just get to jump forward. Some people have scoffed at this ability, but people like playing monks because they dash and move fast. People like playing air sorcerer because they dash and they move fast. People like playing favorite soul because they're tanky, and also because they dash and they move fast. Dashing and moving fast is very good, and having this here on a 15-second cooldown, very good. Next, you have Ruin Intensified. Your Ruin and Greater Ruin now apply a secondary burst of damage based on your Draconic Bloodline. This scales with the appropriate spell power. This is insane. This means that if you actually take Ruin and Greater Ruin, your character can hit a monster for 1,000 untyped, and 1000 of your base spell power all at the same time, meaning you're able to ruin people with this for upwards of 75,000 damage or higher. This is crazy. I can't believe this is in the game. Nice job. Over here we have Hellstorm. It adds Hellball to your spell list. This is a typo. It's going to be at your top of your spell list. So if you're a bard, it's a 6th level spell. If you're an artificer, it's a 6th level spell. If you're a sorcerer or wizard, it's going to be an 8th level spell. So if you get 9th level spells, you get it as an 8. If you get 6th level spells as your cap, it gets it as a 6. And you get Hellball. That's cool. Hellball still sucks, so it needs to be improved and made better. So hopefully the Hellball will also get a buff with this to be made better. But overall, great idea. And then lastly, the Epic Moment, Dragon Form. This is a tiering up ability. It starts out low, where you get like a bit of DR and some, or you get immunity to damage of your Draconic Bloodline. So when I say start out low, I mean immunity to damage. So if you're a Fire Dragonborn, 30 seconds of fire immunity. It's kind of good right away. Then you get DR after 5 seconds. You get 50% spell cost after 10 seconds. So that leaves you 20 seconds left of 50% spell cost. Then your Dragon Breath, Strike, Energy Vortex deal double damage for 15 seconds. So that's already good. And then at 20, you get a pulse of elemental damage for 2 seconds, dealing a whole ton of damage that hits everybody around you. Overall, Dragon Form looks really exciting. Like I said, the damage immunity is very strong, and so I'm very much looking forward to playing around with this tree. And combining these two, it's, like I said, it's kind of silly. I did a bunch of testing. I ran a lot of quests. It's way better than just Draconic Incarnation is currently. So I don't know how this is going to get tweaked. So we'll see. Overall, extremely powerful. Look forward to these ones. And based on these trees, I can't wait for Magus of the Eclipse, the Fate Singer, and the Exalted Angel. Hopefully coming soon, but we do not know when the next preview is going to be, and that's when it will be coming. But for me, that's all I have. Thank you for watching. If you like these previews, give that video a like button, subscribe to the channel, because we got more of them coming out, and I'm going to be talking about the rest of the Epic Destinies come soon. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.